Welcome back, everyone. I'm AstroKara, and once again, I am joined by my good friend Adrian Gibson of AstroKara and Astrology. We are here today to talk about the Libra full moon. It's coming up on April 1st. Any thoughts before we pull up the chart?
I keep saying it every single moon. Oh, this is a big one. They're all big moons. We are just being ushered forward in this big evolution. I mean, it happens all the time. It just seems that, I guess, while Pluto is in Aquarius, it's very intense. The shifting is very big.
And I think we're all feeling it. The world is feeling it right now. There's a lot going on, a lot that is drawing our attention. And I think we were talking a little bit before how this moon really does feel more yin. It feels like we need to go in and
Yeah.
do some internal work with this one. So it does feel a little bit more intense, and we'll get to that. So I'm going to go ahead and share the chart, and we'll pick a place to start. All right, can you see it?
Yep.
All right. So for me, it's 7:13 p.m. here in the Phoenix area. I know it's later for you on the.
Yep. 10 p.m. for me, 10, 12, 10, 13, something like that.
Yeah. So we've got 12 degrees, 21 minutes. The sun is in Aries. The moon is in Libra. And we were talking about this earlier as well, that, Aries and Libra are both very yang signs. They're very active. We've got fire and air. Although Venus is the ruler of Libra, of the moon, and it
Mhm.
just moved into her home sign of Taurus. And so that brings it back to the internal, to
Yes.
the yin feeling. So yeah, where would you like to start?
Oh, you could start. I don't
Okay.
know, wherever you want to start. I'll follow along and jump in whenever it strikes me.
So in evolutionary astrology, we always start with Pluto. This is something that I know Adrian's been talking about. I've been talking about in a lot of our moon reports and all the posts that we've been doing in the last several months. Pluto in Aquarius. And so that is the backdrop for everything that we are going through, all the changes. That is the evolutionary intent, is to individuate all the collective changes that we want to see happen, that are happening regardless of whether we want them or not. It's all drawing us to this sense of individuation. And it has to start with us. It has to start internally with each of us before it can then ripple out into the collective. We as individuals need to be the driving force of this change.
No, I was just going to add to that part of this, individuation energy is to really become authentic, our authentic selves, the polarity point. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about this authenticity just because over the last few months, as I've been looking at the charts, there's been a lot of sort of behind the scenes Scorpio energy going along. And this is digging up the shadow parts of ourselves. And I started thinking about how the shadow is the parts of ourselves that have been unacceptable in our collective. And so they get pushed down and then run under the surface unchecked as these projections that happen. But as we're doing a lot of shadow work, I mean, shadow work's been going on for years now. People are doing it through therapy. Everybody's digging up that stuff so that it can be looked at. And that to me, like claiming and embracing our shadow is the authenticity that we're looking for, that we're working toward. It's not natural for ourselves to like cut part of ourselves off. And I think that a lot of what we're seeing in the world is the shadow of the collective because we've separated ourselves off.
No, I love that. And I agree 100%. Is that I think that's one of the reasons we have such a difficult mental health crisis, is we are so cut off from ourselves. And that can
Yes.
create a lot of depression. At least it certainly did for me for a number of years. So getting back to that authentic self is really important, and it has to come through confrontation. That's what Pluto does. It dredges up all of that stuff, and it helps us to confront and then to transform it. I mean, that's the whole point of evolution, right? Is to make
Yeah.
that transformation. And I
Yeah.
think that that speaks a lot to this Jupiter square. So the sun is in Aries, as I said, the moon in Libra. Jupiter's been in Cancer. It's about halfway through its transit through Cancer. It will move into Leo later this year, but it's squaring this lunation. And so that creates an impact point. This is a crisis in action square from both the sun and then Jupiter to the moon. So
Yeah.
these are choice points for us. Jupiter expands. And what I've been talking about, and I believe what you've been talking about, Adrian, is that in Cancer, it's expanding our emotional capacity. It's also getting us to look at the stories about our life, Jupiter, our perspectives, our stories, and how we've attached them to our identity, Cancer. And so part of what I think Pluto and Aquarius is bringing is this breaking apart, Aquarian energy, and detachment of story equals identity.
Yeah.
Because even if those perceptions and perspectives are true, they don't equal who we are.
Yeah, it's just the story. I mean, like I said when we're talking, it's like, through this lifetime, we just pick up a story. It doesn't make us who we are. We are so much more than any of our stories. Those are just the pieces and parts of us, or parts of our experiences, and that doesn't make us who we are. I mean, it certainly adds to it who we are.
Doesn't define us is how I like
Doesn't
to think
define
about
us.
it.
Yes.
Or it doesn't
There we
have
go.
to define us anyway. It
Yeah.
does a lot of times because we get stuck in those stories. We do attach our identity to them. Sometimes it's our trauma, sometimes it's just something that we've been through that we haven't processed, and so it stays stuck
Yeah.
in us and it
Exactly.
stays on repeat. And so I think part of what we were talking about as well is the Aries Libra axis has to do with ourselves, who I am, the Aries energy, and the other, the Libra part. And Aries just knows that it has to do, it has to be, it is, and it acts on its drive. And then it doesn't know where to go next until it receives feedback from the environment. That feedback is the Libra energy. And
Yes.
so, what's happened, though, unfortunately, for many of us, is that that feedback was either negative or it created a perspective. Again, Jupiter, it created a story that somehow we weren't good enough, or that what we were doing or who we are bad somehow or less than. And so those are the types of stories that I'm talking about really needing to confront and look at and decide if you want to keep carrying them.
And this is that South Node energy that we're trying to integrate the North Node into right now. The South Node has got this Yod configuration. It's the vertex of the Yod. So it's this South Node energy, which I look at, excuse me, as part of this perspective, the lens through which we're discerning our reality through this energy where we are measuring ourselves by what we see outside of ourselves. So, oh, this person is doing that. Oh, I don't measure up, so I'm not good enough. So, this is what I call this, like, seeing ourselves through this vision of what the other person, which is not actually possible. We can't see out of somebody else's eyes. There's something that happens in our brains, and we're like, oh, well, if I do this, so and so is going to think this about me. And so that causes us to, change our behavior based on what's accepted by the outside. And this is part of why we suppress parts of ourselves, because we're trying to fit in. We won't be loved if we're a little bit different. And Pluto is saying, no, we have to embrace the individuality because we are different. And to be different and whole is the healthy way to go. And I think that's what this Yod configuration is. It's like, okay, we don't have to look through the outside. That's the conflict when we do that. But really, we want to step into this very authentic way of being. Be yourself and allow that to be okay, no matter what anybody thinks.
Yeah, a lot of that controlling the environment by managing the perceptions, like
Mm,
managing other people's perceptions. I think we've been trained to do that. What's acceptable societally and what's acceptable in your families or in your environments. And so it's like we have to shape shift in those situations in order to be accepted. And that's the part I think of all this Aries energy that is telling us that it's time to just be, that authenticity that we've talked about. And I think part of this yod with Saturn and the sun, Saturn, sometimes the way we experience it is by limitation, but it's meant to just show us where the boundaries are. And then
Yes.
we get to decide. And I think Saturn and Aries helping us to create those new boundaries. Where do I
Yes.
want to grow into the capacity that Jupiter is expanding? How do I then want to create this new container for myself that I can
Eh,
just be in?
Exactly. And you said it. The word is, how do I create the container for myself? We're not worried about what the other people are doing, what anybody thinks, what is actually coming out of ourselves, and how do we want to solidify that for ourselves? And I think that, I mean, we have plenty of planets right now in Aries. Chiron is still there. And yeah, we're about to have a huge parade of planets in Aries by 2 weeks from now.
Yeah,
Um,
I think once Mars and Mercury move into Aries, we'll definitely be feeling a little bit of a shift.
yeah,
Mars, being the ruling planet, or there's a planet associated with Aries, is still in Pisces. So I think some of our action, or some of our drive, is a little bit dampened by that
yeah. I'm
shifting
going to
in
say
energy.
muted.
Yeah,
It's a little bit Mars and water.
I feel that's
Mars,
why I like to describe it. It's like Mars in a water sign is like trying to run underwater. He just can't get moving sometimes. And so yeah, this is, I don't want to say the calm before the storm because it's still very intense, but if you're feeling a little bit less motivated maybe than normal, it's okay. One thing, allow yourself to rest. But there is a very specific reason in my mind, which is Venus in Taurus. We just had Venus move through Aries. And so it was looking at, what do I need? What is it that I need to focus on for myself? And now that it's in Taurus, it's helping us to integrate that into the body. Taurus is that earth sign that really represents the body. And I think the intensity, we were talking about it a little bit before, was this first quarter square to Pluto.
yeah, because we have to make a change.
We got a
You
lot
know,
of first quarter squares, so a lot of crisis and action energy going on. So a lot of
there
choice
is. I
points.
think almost all the squares, right?
All the ones that I saw were,
Yep, that's what I think, and I thought that was kind of unusual. Oh, we're having to make a change. Well, that makes sense in with all this Aries energy. But I've been contemplating this idea with Uranus is about to leave Taurus, and so there's a lot of intensity when we're talking about Uranus. I think that what's going on in the world now seems to be very Uranus and Taurus related, and it's getting more and more intense. I mean, we don't know what will really happen of this, but I think it's about what we value, the way we've valued life on the planet for this last who knows how long. But it's changing. We knew that we were going to experience a change as Pluto went through Capricorn. That was just a given. And now Pluto through Aquarius is really breaking us free from all that. So everything is changing. And part of what's changing is our value structure. In fact, I think when I was writing, everything has to change: our belief structure, our values, how we see ourselves, how we express ourselves into the world. Like everything about us is changing. So when you said here in the beginning that it's a very yin energy, yes, I think so. I think everything, even though we're in Aries, when we're focused on the self, it's yin, sort of both. And
I agree.
yeah, it just seems we're breaking apart these old values. And then we had Aries, Venus move through Aries 2 weeks ago. I think I was writing 2 weeks ago that it had just gone into Aries and now it's already in. So we've been experiencing this looking at different values, looking at what we value, the Aries part of it, what we value, learning to find values that are different than what we've experienced, perhaps, just because Aries is very trial and error kind of energy. We're just experiencing different value structures. And now, as Venus moves into Taurus, we're integrating those in. What are those new values that we've exposed ourselves to? Which ones actually fit in for us? And how will it help us to survive? Because ultimately, Taurus is about survival, how we're surviving on the planet. And not everybody is surviving on the planet right now. But the value structure has to change for this to happen. And so I think it's very much a yin energy and very much a self-focused energy and things that we have to change. And like you also said in the beginning, we can't expect the external to change and we fit in it. We have to do it for ourselves. So I think that even though the moon is in Libra, which would make you think it's the external world, I really find it to be internally focused as well. And perhaps
I think,
it's like,
yeah, with Venus being the ruler of Libra and Taurus,
yeah,
so Venus is ruling that moon. There are a couple things we talked about a little bit too. The sextile between Pluto and Saturn is in a crescent phase, which is yin energy. It's kind of the two steps forward and one step back. It's take action and then you have to evaluate, is this working for me or not? Decide if you want to go in a different direction. And that's part of that sensitivity to our values right now. And I love what you were saying about, we have to make changes and we have to be a little bit more self-focused in this place.
yeah,
I think the challenge is that square again to Pluto, where it's going to feel really intense. And this is what how I describe it when I'm talking about in my coaching is, right at that threshold. It's we get to this precipice and it's like, okay, I want to make this change. I know I need to make this change. There's a drive behind it. I know my reason why. I'm determined that I'm going to do it. And then when we're in that situation where the fear kicks in, the compulsion is going to be to shrink ourselves
yeah,
or to, do whatever we did to stay in that self-protective mode. That's where we're going to really have to make that effort to step over the threshold and say, I'm going to do something different this time.
yeah,
Whether it's resisting the compulsion to fix something or resisting the compulsion to over explain, or just sometimes it's standing in your own boundaries. And all of that is related to that Venus in Taurus and that
yeah,
square to Pluto.
yeah. And also that sextile with with Pluto and Saturn.
Yes, our boundaries. Going back to the yod, we were talking too about Mercury as the boomerang point. So Mercury is the integration point. And we've been talking a lot about, perspectives and the way we think. Mercury is the way we think. It's the way we, take in information and then process it. And so being in Pisces, it's still a little bit diffuse, right? What's true, what's not true for me. But it's also the ending of that cycle. So
Yes.
whatever these stories are that we've been living in, this that we've been telling ourselves that maybe is true, maybe is not, but whatever it is, it's coming to a close. So somehow we need to integrate it, whether that means we have to decide that we're not going to continually tell the story to ourselves, or if it's just that detaching it from who I am. It's just a part of my backstory. It's not me anymore.
Yeah. And I remember when I was first learning about Pisces that it was described as like when you start something, you don't know what it's going to be about. You actually have to live all the way through it. And then you have like a transcendent view of what happened because you've been through the entire experience. And this is what's happening with this, with our thought processes now. We are ending a cycle of thinking about. Now, Mercury is ruling the South Node. So this is that perspective of reality that we've been living under for a long time, that we're separate from each other, that there's some kind of a hierarchy in beings. I love the fact that these protests going on right now are no kings. Yeah, there's no hierarchy. That's something that's
That's Pisces North Node, right? No
so
hierarchy, no kings.
yeah, so we're yes. So we're dissolving that whole mindset. And then we're aligning because we had just a few days ago the conjunction between Mercury and the North Node. We're aligning to a more Piscean transcendent mindset. we're moving on. I mean, we're evolving. So the mindset is changing. And I think it's interesting because the North Node being in Pisces is like this energy of, yes, we've been separate. We understand now. We have the bird's eye view of what it is to be separate. That's good. It isn't the reality. It's just a learning cycle that we've been through. Now we're going to integrate that into we are also one because we are both. And when we moving on into the next phase with both points of view, I'm imagining that that will really help humanity move forward, that it won't be so separate. Like all of us will get a chance to find some equality
And
when
there's our Libra moon, right? This is
there's our Libra moon, right?
social justice and equality and harmony and balance. And obviously the world is terribly out of balance right now. And
Oh, yeah.
hopefully we're moving individually towards some internal balance so that then we can share it with the rest of the collective. That's part
And
of
I
what we
think,
were talking about too, is that, the Aries energy being self-focused. And you even mentioned this earlier, that sometimes we have to be self-focused, but we've been taught that it's selfish to
yeah,
be self-focused, and it's just not true. I mean,
no,
there are times when selfishness can cause other people pain or it can disrupt things, but we have to take care of ourselves first. The whole, if you're on an airplane and it's going down, you put your mask on first, or you can't pour from an empty cup. There's so many different, analogies that we use to get that same point across.
yeah. And I think that it is both. We do have to care for ourselves. We do have to make sure that our survival is key. I mean, we're responsible for these bodies. You're not responsible for my body. So I have to keep this one alive. You've got to keep yours alive. But then we have, it's like wider and wider circles. We can keep our family health, like and our neighbors and our it just gets wider and wider circles, but it all starts with us.
I agree. I think that both of us have been focusing on that and preaching that, if you will, talking about that, teaching that, just encouraging that really is,
Yeah.
to let people know that you're allowed to think about yourself and you're allowed to focus on yourself and take care of your own needs and make those changes for yourself. It's
Yeah.
important.
I mean, it does. I don't think it means that you stop caring about others. It's just that in the swing of the pendulum, we've been more focused on others than ourselves. We've neglected ourselves, and we have to swing the pendulum back to create balance.
That really speaks to my Pluto and Libra. And so I think a lot of, Gen X Pluto Libras will resonate with that because we came in with the soul memory of giving to the other. We didn't know we had agency. And so I think a lot of us are still learning that. Not that it's just us, but I think a lot of Gen X will resonate with that.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the other things that we were talking about, talking about mindset and perspectives, is this trine from Jupiter to Mercury, or Mercury to Jupiter. It's actually a disseminating trine. Did you want to
Yeah.
talk about that a little?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is where we're putting this mercurial mindset, our dissolving and also picking up our individuated. Each of us is going to receive a mindset from source. We're not going to have the same. We all are individuals. We have our natal Mercuries happening. The way that I liken it is that we're picking up a mindset that is more aligned to source. Like we are the hands and feet of source here on this earthly plane, and we've ended one cycle. We're about to start another one. So it's like we're carrying that mindset into the future, but now we have to bring it into the societal norm. We really have to begin to disseminate it into the culture because, like we were saying earlier, nothing is going to change without the individual. We each have to do our part. Not everybody's going to think the same way. Not everybody has those, everybody's different, but because Pluto's in Aquarius, as we start really vibrating our own frequency and our own mindset into the world, those people that align with us will come to us. Just through quantum physics. Just happens.
Yes, we will get entangled with the right people, right?
We will get entangled with the right people. And I'm already noticing it happening, you know.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I would say to anybody that's watching, that his feeling changes and maybe they're feeling like parts of their lives are maybe being stripped away or just falling away. I mean, that's part of this process, is that things that don't align to you are meant to fall away. They're meant to dissolve. Where we get hung up is that we're so attached to them, right? And it's painful to let go. And sometimes there does need to be a grieving process of that letting go, whether it's of people, of things, even parts of your own identity. It's okay
Absolutely.
to grieve them.
Absolutely. And that's okay. It's good to grieve those things. You know, it's acknowledgement that that was there, that you enjoyed that particular phase, but that now it's over. And this is the thing about life, is that we're just going to go through cycle after cycle after cycle. It's always going to change. I mean, bring the memory back to the childhood. We are not in the same, you know. I grieve my favorite doll. But you know, we're moving on, and this is something that just happens all the time through life.
It's part
um
of the growth cycle. It's part of what true evolution means, right? Is to
yep.
grow. And sometimes we outgrow things. I think about a seed, and I think about that analogy, especially with Venus and Taurus and being very earth and just the crescent phase energy. If Aries is the sprout, right, is when the sprout finally breaks through the ground and says, "Here I am." The Taurus part of it is the nurturing of it,
Yep.
right? And it's still learning how to be in the soil and be in the air too. And I don't know if that made
Yeah,
sense, but that's the image that I thought of.
it is. And then the nurturing part of it is like making sure it's getting enough sunlight, watering it, and maybe a little fertilizer here and there. You just
Whatever
got to
it
nurture.
needs, and that goes back to the Venus needs, right?
There it is. Yeah.
And I mean, that's just an analogy, but I think about in a human life, okay, well, what does that mean? That means that if I have a need for, quiet, or a time of quiet in my day, and
Yep.
I live in an active household or whatever, then it might mean that I need to set a new boundary and say out loud, I need this. I need
Yes.
this space. I need this time, to the other people in my environment. So that's just one example, if maybe someone needs that.
But
But
this is definitely part of setting your new boundaries.
Mhm. And recognizing our own needs. And I think it's difficult sometimes if we've never really thought about it, or if we've never really been allowed to be selfish, or
Yeah.
even consider what is it that I need. And so I would encourage anybody to just take a little bit of time to think on that, contemplate on
Yeah.
that. And usually what that is, when you notice it, is when you feel an activation in your nervous system. Some people call it a trigger. When you start feeling that resentment build up, or that, frustration or anger build up, and you get real tense, that's usually an indicator that that some boundary's been crossed, or that
Yeah.
a need hasn't been met. And so I think that it's really a good key to pay attention to, because your body's going to tell you.
That Mercury is second deacon of Pisces, which is Cancer, which I think is so interesting. And it's, you know, pointing back to the self image. It's almost like, okay, so Mercury, when it's dealing with the South node, and it is in opposition, is like, that's the part that's ending. We're integrating those two parts. Once you're taking away the perspective from the external, the internal is what's left, right? It's one one or the other. They're opposite of each other. So I think that that's really interesting. And also Jupiter is in Cancer. So we have this energy of it's like all pointing to the self-image, our emotional fields, our emotional regulation even, and that we have to pay attention to that.
And I think that's also coming back to that square to the lunation. So if Aries is myself and I am, and
Yeah.
Libra is the mirror of the other, it's also the shadow of comparison. That's that, we're looking outside of ourselves. And when
Yes.
I'm comparing myself to something else, and whether I measure up or maybe I think I'm better than that,
Yeah.
either way, that doesn't provide equality that
Yeah.
Libra is really looking for. And it does come down to how are we holding the capacity for our own emotional connection to
There you
ourselves.
go.
And I talk about, self trust a lot. And to me, that's right here back to Venus being the ruler of the lunation in her own sign of Taurus. It has to come back to building that self trust. Because, like you were saying, if our perspectives, if these are our choices, the external perspective and my internal perspective, if I get rid of that external perspective, I really have to ground into my internal perspective to know that I can trust myself, that I'm going to
Yeah.
be okay no matter what's happening on the
Yeah.
outside.
And it's uncomfortable when you haven't done that before. So
Yes.
that's the uncomfortability. But this is about being comfortable with the uncomfortable. You just got to step into it, because if we want things to change, you can't keep doing things the same way. You literally have to make a change, even if it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
so one
that's,
of go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, I think that's a lot of what this energy is trying to say to us. It's helping us let go of the past while we step into the future.
Or what I found actually a lot of times, it's not always something that we have to do. Sometimes, or a lot of times, it's what we have to stop ourselves from doing. That's what I was talking about earlier is we have these compulsions or we have these urges to go back to what's comfortable. It's like
Yes.
that's where we have to stop ourselves and make a new change, make a new action, do something different.
And it's
Um,
not that easy.
no, that is the hard part. That is the shadow work. Is
Yeah.
to me that is the work that we're talking about.
That is the work for sure. Yeah, I think of it like we've got this groove in the brain. We've been doing the same behavior for such a long time. It's very difficult to start and make a new groove over here.
Yes, that
You
path is
know,
very well worn.
yeah, and very often the thread will slip back into that. It's like, oh, that's that two steps back. It's like, oh, making the change is not an easy thing, but it doesn't mean we don't try. It
Sure.
doesn't mean that we just give up because it's difficult.
Yeah, and that's the thing too that I try to explain a lot as well is that it's not necessarily going to be one single change that you make and
Yeah,
then all of a sudden everything's better.
yeah,
This is that groove took a long time like you said, and so it's going to take a while to
yeah,
make consistent changes to make a new groove,
yeah.
to
And
rewire
it,
that part of the brain
yeah, and it's also easier to make small changes than it is to make a big, huge change.
for it to be
Picking
consistent.
small.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, I decided to start drinking a glass of water every morning before I had any coffee. First, hydrate. Then you can enjoy your coffee, but first, hydrate. And then over the years, and it started off, I would just drink a pint of water. Now I drink a quart of water, and I put half a lemon juice in it to like help balance that acidic alkaline level. And
That's a perfect
but
example. I mean, that's a perfect example. It's a daily thing that you started and you started out small and
yeah,
it probably was difficult to change that routine. And then
exactly.
now you're like, it's my daily thing. It's
Now I get up and I drink a quart of water with lemon in it, and it's been going on now for more than 6 months. So, but the water drinking's been going on for 3 years now, and it's not. It's now a groove in the brain. I reach for the water first, but it was a slow step.
yeah, slower process. To me, that's what I mean when I talk about being the alchemist, making the transformation and where you can look back at something and you're like, that was the before and currently I'm the after or whatever. I'm in the current.
Yeah,
But I can look back and see how my life was. I can look back and see my reactions. I can look back and see how my relationships were. And all of the changes that I've made slowly in my own life, I now see the payoff of that. My relationship is more solid. I don't have these crazy reactions anymore. Not that I don't, but uh,
yeah,
if I do, I'm able to regulate myself much quicker.
yeah.
it does take time and it does take effort. So yeah, I just want to say that to
Yeah.
give encouragement to people that, it's even though we want it to happen right away, and especially with this Aries energy, it's like I want to make this change and I want it to stick right now. It's gonna take a little bit of repeating.
It takes time, and that's okay. And
Yeah.
and the embracing of the shadow is also a really big part. Like, we are who we are. We are who we are. And if we can embrace our shadow, then it makes it a little bit easier to embrace others' shortcomings or what, we have to do it in here first.
And I think that that's beautiful. And maybe we can end on that thought that this is the Aries Libra part too, is giving ourselves, Aries, the permission to be, to
Yes.
let go of judgment. It also then lets go of projection, and it
Yeah.
makes it much easier for us to accept the other, the Libra.
Oh, wow. Perfect. Yeah,
Beautiful.
exactly.
Any closing thoughts?
These times are intense indeed. I think that coming into the self is really important. Embracing our shadows are really important. Being kind to ourselves, really taking those little steps forward in the direction that is coming from within. We all have a direction that we're heading, and honoring that direction, being okay, even if you don't see anybody else doing it. It's your path, it's your journey. Once you start, you'll find the others doing it.
I agree. Yeah. That frequency will vibrate, and they will
Yeah,
begin to merge together, to come together at on some level. So if you're interested in learning more about what I do or about what Adrian does, I'll put all the links in the description. Tell them what all you
I
do.
do. Yeah, natal chart readings. I do relationship readings. I do essential needs readings. I do solar return charts and secondary progression charts. If you're having going through a difficult patch and need a little bit of clarity of what's going on, reach out to me. I'm going to be linking my website below. Also, I have a Substack account that I really write a pretty in-depth moon report every couple of weeks, and that will also be linked below.
Perfect. Yep. And my all my stuff is on my website. I also have a Substack account. I also do natal chart readings and transit readings, but my focus is coaching, which I call therapeutic astrology. We use this style of astrology as a tool. So until next time, take care of you.